Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did. Welcome back to the Take the Leap podcast. We are very excited to welcome Affinity Project's founder, Natalia Kay-O'Brien, a queer, feminist, neurodivergent, creative organizer and strategist living on land stewarded for millennia by the Kathlamet, Chinook, Clatskanie, and Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and Siletz, aka Portland, Oregon. Natalia has over 25 years of experience providing vision, leadership, and strategy to projects that center and uplift marginalized communities. Oriented toward socially just projects and organizations, Affinity Project's offerings have continued evolving to include a broad scope of services, event planning, production and coordination, copywriting for newsletters, reports, email marketing and social media, grants management, project planning and support, organizational and communication strategy, and development and execution of fundraising and marketing campaigns. Natalia's work is motivated by a lifelong passion for social justice and the guiding belief that everyone deserves to be safe, healthy, and able to access the resources needed to thrive. Thank you so much, Natalia, for being here with us today. And we're so excited to have you.
Yes, welcome. We're so happy.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
But part of the reason we brought you here today, Natalia, is we would love to have you share your Take the Leap story. So Take the Leap is a podcast, a course, and a community that Tori and I are starting for people to share their stories of entrepreneurship and why and how and what they did to get there. So I'll pass it on to you to share.
Okay, thank you. My Take a Leap story probably begins, let's say about 2 years ago. I got laid off from a job, and 24 hours later, I noticed that I felt a deep sense of relief. And I also realized as I was sort of, reflecting on my experience and what had gone wrong and, what I needed to learn from it, I realized really, I think for the first time in my career that I was really capable and I know what I'm doing. And it was sort of like this straw that broke the camel's back. The last time somebody was going to push back on me as if I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm being hired to provide a very specific expertise and skills. And as long as I believed that I wasn't fully competent and fully capable, other people's disbelief would undermine my confidence. And that experience finally was like the last straw that made me realize I knew it. I knew that I was in over my head because I wasn't being resourced the way I needed to be, because, there just wasn't other support being given when I was asking for it. The expectations for the job were really out of scope in terms of what was realistic and possible. And I knew it all along and I never said anything. And I probably didn't say anything because I thought, she's going to think that I'm just not good enough, that I don't know what I'm doing. And it's really me that's the problem, not the job description. And once I had this like 24 hours to kind of get a different perspective on it, I was like, oh, that's the last time I'm ever going to let somebody make me question myself and what I'm capable of. And I think it's really hard to own a business if you are not in that place of truly believing in yourself. And so, after it was like, this wasn't an isolated incident of getting let go because expectations were high and support was low. And I just thought like, oh, I can't ever do that again. I'm never going to ask beg for a job. I'm not going to put myself through, what can be a really depressing, disheartening, and demoralizing experience when you are job hunting and career seeking. And after trying and trying and trying, like my earnest best over 15 years, I decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. And within like 3 months, I got very clear that I was ready to do this. Like I had thought about it for a long time, and people have talked to me about it for a long time as being the kind of work that would suit me. But, it requires being willing to take the risk of not having the somebody else finding the work for you, right? And like some place to go every day and somebody providing your paycheck. It is a risk to take. But for me at this point, I had already risked my health. I had already risked having retirement of any kind. There were so many things that I lost and gave up in the process of trying to find a fit for like my skills and passion and what an organization needed. So that's the nutshell version.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, because it is, I feel like both of us have experienced this where, you try to go in and you like pitch all these projects and you do all these different things and, and then somebody's just like, no, I want you to do that, or no, not that. And then I will just say this quite frankly, then a consultant comes in, pitches the same things that you've had for ideas you've had for years, and somehow ding, 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 like that's the moment.
Makes more
And
sense
you're
to
just
them,
like,
yeah.
100%.
Why?
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so frustrating, yeah.
Yep. And I didn't realize how sick of not being listened to I was until I was in relationship with people who were listening to me and feeling how good it feels to be respected enough to somebody take your word that like you know what you're talking about and you're sharing some good guidance with them. It's really kind of a basic level of respect, right? Like you hire me to do a job and you should trust that I've got the skills and allow me to, tell you what to do. And, if I have to get paid better to get people to listen to me, I'm happy to do it at this point in my life and my career.
I want to bring back to the point that you said that when you don't believe in yourself, it's really hard to run a business and it's hard to get other people to believe in you too. And I feel like I relate to that point so much. And I think even when I first started out in business and even just all the way along my career, I feel like I had that same problem, that same mentality going through my career. And then, okay, fine, no one's listening to me. I'm just going to go off on my own and do my own thing. And I think that was something that I had to work through in the beginning of running my business was, oh, I know what I'm doing. That's why I started for this business. If I didn't know what I was doing, I'd be doing something different, right? And I think it's just so powerful when you have the mindset of, okay, here I am. I know my worth. I know what I have to offer. It's just everything else tends to flow so much easier. And then you get to choose the clients that you work with, and you get to work with people, you attract those types of people. And it's just incredible. Thank you for sharing that. That's such a powerful thing.
And I don't, I was 48. Like it took me a long time to get to the place where I believed in myself enough to like be able to say like, fuck you. If you don't want to listen, then like, I'll go elsewhere. I'll take what I have elsewhere. I don't need this anymore.
Learning to say fuck you is just the most powerful thing I think you can learn in your life. Honestly, like,
Yep.
like I've just hit a point in my life where it's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And it's so empowering. And yeah, I think if anyone had asked me for advice, I think that's what I would just tell them from here on out. Learn how to say fuck you. Knowing what you know now that you've been in business for a little while, what advice would you give yourself back then when you were just starting out, now that you know what you know?
Well, I'll refer back to what I just said about being 48 when I started my business. Like, I think I already had a lot of hard lessons that I learned along the way that I was able to bring in with me. But I think if anything would have made my life easier, it would be to remind myself to think about things less, that I don't need to overthink things, and that when I say I don't know, I usually mean that I feel it or I believe it, or it's a more, not a head knowing, but like more of a body knowing, and to not discount that. Like, just because I don't know something up here doesn't mean that I don't know, because I very often say, I don't know, but I do have like a gut instinct, right? So just to like really honor that and listen to it and trust it.
Trusting your instincts, so powerful. I still struggle with that too sometimes.
Me too.
I think everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
When to listen to it? When is it just anxiety? When, you know, I guess that's my problem. But
well, we're not taught to, right? So it's something like we have to learn how to do, or like, and unlearn all the things around it that like keep us from being in touch with it, right?
Absolutely.
We're such a brain rational type of society.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. Yeah. And I grew up in a family of academic people and teachers, right? Where like knowledge is the ultimate. And so, yeah. And white supremacy culture.
But you really need a bit of both.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So next question that we love asking people is, what's your why? What is the why behind the work that you do?
I mean, ultimately, the why behind the work is social justice. Like, plain and simple. Like, I am here to do what I can to advance the cause of social justice in whatever kind of capacity. And that's looked like a lot of different things. But I think that's like my driving, like, I want to make the world better. I want to spare people who deal with oppression from those experiences, right? Like, to create better avenues of access to resources. It's really all in the service of like having a world where people can be healthy and happy without having to destroy, like, I don't know, their souls working for a company that pays them a lot, but it sucks their soul, you know, like, I think we could do a lot better, and we all deserve a lot better. And so I'm here to be of service, right? Like, I'm just like, I'm here to like use what I've got, give me a direction and a focus. And if it is ultimately helping to make the world more equitable, more accessible, more sane and healthy for all people, then that's my jam.
I
love that. That's such a great answer, and probably why you have so much experience with nonprofit anyway. I mean, I feel like that kind of personality is drawn to nonprofits, and then get burnt out by nonprofits and start their business. So
yeah, and I just like I couldn't imagine a life outside of the nonprofit sector, but I also couldn't imagine a life in the nonprofit sector by the time I got to the end of my career working inside the sector. You know, it's like a mission driven person. I'm like, what else am I going to do with my life? I don't want to be a part of capitalism and materialism and accumulation culture. Like I couldn't live with myself. Like I have to be a part of doing good and making better.
Are you ready?
Yes.
The hot seat.
Okay.
The hot seat. All right. First question. I always kick this off with this question. This is my thing now. What is your best / worst and or both piece of advice that you've received in your career?
Wow. Let me start with the best advice. Gosh. I mean, honestly, one of the best pieces of advice that was also kind of the worst because it was really hard to hear was to take care of myself. I was in a toxic job that for an organization I loved dearly and was like deeply invested in over the course of years. And I had to let go. And I didn't want to, right? And basically somebody was like, you have to walk away now. There's just no other option. Like you can't fight it. Because I think on some level I thought I was gonna like fight the thing and I was gonna stay and this other person was gonna go. And this person was just like very real with me and was like, that's not gonna be what will happen. But you can take care of yourself and do what you need to for you. It was like really, really hard to hear that because it was not what I wanted to do. But it
Yeah.
was 100% the right thing to do. And probably put me on my path to where I am right now. Like, made me realize that subverting my own needs for the greater good was not, when it harmed me, was ultimately not really helpful.
That's so powerful. I think that is my favorite answer to that question so far.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Having that
And
permission
yeah.
giving yourself that permission is so, so important. Like, I mean, even what's been nice about partnering with Tori on this project is we give each other permission to push our fake deadlines, to, do all of these things.
Right.
And it's important. And sometimes you hold yourself, you had said it in the beginning that we have these kind of really unrealistic standards, and even I've, left positions where you go and you look at who they hired afterwards and you're like, oh, I was asking for support and now you have, my role is now split into 2 roles. Cool. That's really awesome. Would have been nice to, have that when I was there. And so, yeah, I think taking care of yourself, and that is part of the path of entrepreneurship, is that you get to care about you. No other, you're seeing it with so many jobs right now, people getting laid off or their companies, downsizing and things like that. That's not what you get to experience on the entrepreneurship side. You get to hold that dear and closer.
And it might be like dramatic to say this, but it's interrupting cycles of violence that are happening in workplaces, right? And like, I'm sure I'm not alone as an entrepreneur and being a person who is so glad to be freed of all of the bullshit, of all of the wasted time and energy that goes into navigating, socializing with people who you just want to work with, and like whatever the dynamics might be that are dysfunctional and unhealthy. It's like I don't have that anymore. I don't have coworkers. I'm like, I have colleagues. I have people I collaborate with and partner with, but like it's much less complicated and right, like you were saying, Tori, like I have control. I make the decisions about who I work with and what I work on, and right, we can sort of self-select our way out of the unhealthier aspects of professionalism.
Or, like the aspects of being like thrown under the bus essentially by like people who you work alongside of, and you're like, I have to show up tomorrow and be next to you. Like, what the hell? It creates so many of these like terrible political inter dynamics that are just not, it's just not worthwhile,
Exactly. And though you do find that a little bit in the entrepreneur world, I feel like that is definitely a very old way of doing business. And I feel like nowadays, the community you surround yourself with, so much more positive, so much more empowering. And that's what I love about having Ashlan as a partner in this. I mean, we've been biz besties for a long time and kept each other accountable. And like slowly that circle has grown into other biz besties that I have. You know, we don't look at each other as competition. We don't
Right.
think of each other as getting in our way.
Yeah.
We collaborate. We say, hey, I had this weird thing happen with a client, or should I put this thing in my contract? Or, like, what do you do when the situation? And it just frees up so much space instead of being the old business owners, like the cheesy salesmen who are like, gotta look at my competition, gotta one up them. And, it doesn't make any sense. I feel like this new collaborative approach makes us so much better at what we do because we get to work together and find resources and just learn from each other. I love that. It's my favorite part.
Tori, you perfectly teed up my next question to ask Natalia about Gather, which is an event that you are supposed to go meet other people in your industry and learn to collaborate with. So I am very proud to be a co-host sponsor, an in-kind sponsor of Gather. But I wanted to draw out of you, because you have told me this. I would love for you to share how many times you tried to start something like Gather in the past, and maybe perhaps some of the lessons that you've learned along the way, and what made you continue to persevere to kind of get it, to where it's at today?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that question. If I leave bits out, feel free to prompt me. So yeah, I'm not going to answer them in order. Let's see. I will never stop doing it because it is like a compulsion for me. The desire to bring people together is something that I've just always done in my life in a lot of different kinds of ways. Um, but I mean, a happy hour is something specifically for the nonprofit sector, something I've tried at least 3 times before launching Gather. Before doing them for the nonprofit sector, when I worked in other sectors, I put together happy hours because I was a woman working in the trades, and there weren't many women working in the trades. And as I started to meet them and they said, I don't know any other women who work in the trades, I was like, you should meet this other gal that I met the other day. So I started a happy hour that then actually eventually got taken over by a nonprofit that serves women trying to get into the trades. And, I exited the trades and I don't remember what the first year was I tried to launch Gather, but I was running a private Facebook group for folks working in the nonprofit sector. And after a while of building the group up to being a nice number of people, I was sort of trying to suss out if people wanted to get together in person. And people said yes. And so every couple of years, I would host an event, and 5 people would show up or 10 people would show up, but never enough for it to feel like it's worth my time and energy to do this one more time. So, after Trump got elected, I tried again because of course I was feeling angry like many people, and I wanted to be with other people who could relate to my experience. I had a day job that was very isolating politically, and right, it just wasn't the right time. What I've learned is just how to produce an event better over the years, and how to do marketing and communication better. And why it worked this time and not before. I mean, I'll say COVID. That's an easy answer, and I think it's true, and it's what I'm hearing and seeing from a lot of other people. I'm hearing this conversation about how ever since COVID, we need and want to be together. We were so starved of that social experience of being in person, and I know that for a lot of nonprofit people, we can get to feeling really isolated, even when it's not COVID times. because we work at tiny organizations and we don't have colleagues who do the same work we do within our organization. That was my experience as a fundraiser. It's hard sometimes to be the only person in your organization who knows and understands what your work is. So I really wanted to create a place where we could get together outside of work, outside of conferences, outside of workshops, and just have some like pure, unadulterated, unprogrammed time to just connect and talk and get to know one another. And I know nonprofit geeky people are going to talk about nonprofit geeky things. And so everybody wants to know, well, like, what does your organization do? Oh, that's so cool. What does your organization do? Right. And gosh, when you work alone a lot and you don't get a lot of positive feedback from people, like most people in leadership, gosh, it can be really nice, right? To like go and meet some fresh faces and talk to other people who have been in similar roles, worked at similar kinds of organizations, or, who can help connect you with something you've like never even thought about before that is somehow related to the nonprofit sector or some kind of service-oriented work.
It's really funny because the way that Victoria and I reconnected was in the beginning of 2020, we were solo marketing people in our respective organizations. So there were a lot of places for like fundraising people to hang out, but not marketing accounts people to hang out.
Totally.
So we had 2 meetings and then COVID happened and then we couldn't, nobody wanted to get together on Zoom or anything like that, but we stayed
everyone
in
was so sick of it.
Yeah. So
Yeah. That's so funny that you say that because it's so true. We all need that connection in whether we get it directly from where we're working or we take the time to network and talk to other people in the industry. It's so important.
And on like so many levels, right? Like it's important for us emotionally, spiritually, like physically. Our health depends on us being connected to other people, right? So, and then like as a sector, the more connected we are, the better we're going to do our work, the more effective we're going to be as a sector, right? Like when there's more collaboration happening, then everybody's load should lighten a little bit, right? Like internally, because there's more external collaboration happening. And I think that's like the subtext of the event, right? Is like, I have this dream.
Evil plan.
Not to rule the world, but just to like see us do better, right? To see us do better, like to see us treating one another better, to be asking more and better for ourselves, right? Like when it comes to how much we ask foundations to pay for our salaries, right? Like I think that we have not been as compassionate to ourselves in the sector as we could be. And that's why people are burning out left and right. And that's why people aren't interested in getting into the sector, which like bodes well for us as consultants, but I don't know what that says about the future of.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. Well, speaking of all of that, this is kind of a good segue to that. How has your experience changed now that you are on the other side of the nonprofit side? The good, the bad, the ugly. We want to hear
it. I would be hard pressed to come up with something bad. My relationship with my work has improved like 200%. My relationships that I hold professionally now are like 1,000 times better because my personal health and well-being is so much better because now I have the time and the space that I need to do what I have to take care of myself. Which means like I'm healthier and happier, which means like I in general feel better about all the things, including my work, right? And I can probably do better at my work when I'm taking really good care of myself. It's wild. It has 180 degrees. Like everything has shifted in such a huge way, where the things that felt like they were always holding me back and keeping me down are now the things that are my assets and my strengths, and what truly give me value as a consultant and as a professional. Which is like a little bit of a mind fuck after, like trying to kind of fit into these boxes and fit into these different roles, that like I don't have to do that anymore. I feel free, like in so many ways. I feel so much more free as a human and a person. Maybe because I have so much more control over my time and my energy and how I do my work. Like people aren't getting in my business. Like I can just like do what I want to do, and I can do it how I want to do it. And I don't have a supervisor looking over my shoulder or questioning me all the time, who like doesn't get my process or my style of communication. We talked about like you sort of self-select out like the people who don't communicate the same kind of way. Like we're not going to work together if you're right. Like we won't get past the initial consultation if we don't have some shared lexicon, right? That like we all understand. So I think like, when you can pick who you work for and who you work with, that improves the quality of one's work experience manifold. Like, so
So true.
I was, like anything would have been better, frankly. Like my work life has been so shitty in so many different kinds of ways for so many years that like it's not hard for my work experience or my professional experience to have gotten better. It's like all the things that were holding me back have been removed from my life. Like I don't have barriers or impediments anymore. People getting in my way or trying to undermine me, right? Like it's a radically different experience.
That's amazing. And I want to ask you, because this is not part of the rapid fire questions, it just kind of made me think about it. When I had a similar experience where I was just so burnt out and not listened to, and that for so many of the same reasons decided to go out on my own. And I found that first year of doing this, I tried to fit myself into the mold of my clients. Like I was trying to prove myself, overprove myself. And I found myself following some of those same patterns that I would in the workplace. And so I'm just curious, because it sounds like you figured out right away, nope, done. And I just wanted to see if you had any advice.
Sorry, let's be real. I've been in therapy for a very long time, and I have a therapist who has been like by my side on this journey, right? Like from when I was miserable 7-8 years ago to like getting to the place where I felt strong enough and confident enough, and like I believed in myself and loved myself enough that like there was no other viable option for me anymore. It really helped to have somebody walking by my side, reminding me to keep everything aligned, like to keep what I'm doing aligned with my values, including that, like loving myself, taking care of myself, having compassion. And maybe I had more years of experience of, I don't know, just being comfortable, not fitting. There were it was hard for me to ever kind of fit in quite right. So I was very accustomed to like not quite fitting the mold of what was the norm. And I realized like that's why I'm going to be self-employed, so that I can just fully be me and authentic. And that itself has a lot of value in it. That was being I was always being asked to like hide that or put that away, or like you bring a creative solution to the table and they're like, it's a little too outside the box for us. It's like, okay, well, keep doing things the way you're doing them then. And from the get-go, like I was really committed to establishing like everything was oriented around, is this healthy for me? Is this conducive to my well-being? Like that really has become a
Gosh.
very big metric for how I make decisions. And that was never a part of the equation before. And now it's like, is this going to make me happy? Is this going to make me healthy? Is this going to be conducive to my health and happiness? And if the answer is no, then like I'm not self-employed to do jobs I don't want to do.
Snaps.
Love that.
Snaps.
Oh my gosh.
Snaps.
Yes.
For that.
I'm going to just repeat that every single day.
Right? It's like I'm my own boss. I can't blame anybody if I'm doing something I don't want to be doing. Also, like getting paid enough, that has a lot to do with it, right? Like I felt good from day one because I was finally being compensated in a way that felt fair and commensurate with the level of experience that I have, right? And just can't underestimate that. Even as somebody who's not a capitalistic person, like we all deserve to be valued in the way that our society deems to be how you assess value financially, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a common thread with nonprofits too. I feel like there's almost this belief that if you are working in a nonprofit, you're doing it because you love the mission and you want to help. But if you want money to pay your bills, then all of a sudden that removes the amount that you're giving, when in reality, if you put yourself first and your needs first, you can actually help more.
Exactly.
And I wish more people would put that together.
Well, I mean, it's very counter to all the programming we get, right, about work and what is of value in the culture that we live in. But it's like, but we can actually reset that a little bit by deciding, no, I'm actually worth more than that.
Absolutely. I love that.
Okay, I got the next question. So, in your bio, you share about being neurodiverse, and you can decide whether or not you want to answer this question. But how has being an entrepreneur either been fueled by or stalled out by having ADHD or neurodiverse things?
Yeah,
However you want to define it.
ADHD is correct. I do have ADHD, and I didn't get diagnosed until about 6 years ago, and it still continues to be an unfolding of understanding how it impacts me in my life and how it has impacted me in my life. It is a huge part of why I am self-employed. I probably many of the challenges I've encountered professionally come down to I'm a neurodiverse person operating in a neurotypical world where sometimes things just don't compute for me the way they do for other people. And, when you don't, like, when I didn't have a diagnosis, I didn't have any way of understanding that other than it was a failing on my part of like not being smart enough, probably, right? Or not being something enough. And it was a real journey, like getting a diagnosis and understanding what that, like how that showed up in my life and how that impacted different parts of my life. And I started to understand that like these like quirks and like personality things are, many of them are neurodiversity and just about kind of the way my brain processes information. And I would say like people have become more aware of it. And I'm so grateful that like when I get to sit in a seminar and somebody is talking about different kinds of oppressed people and they like remember to include people with disabilities, it is more often than not the case that when people are like listing off oppressed peoples that they think about people with disabilities. And the responses that I've gotten in the workplace to advocating for myself have been like in one case, they did not have proper policies and procedures in place. They did not know how to deal with accommodations or what to do about it. And the way, in retrospect, I now understand the process I went through was really illegal and like really not by the book, like how it's supposed to happen. Um, but also a lot of the HR policies and practices around disabilities and disclosure and all of the processes you have to go through to get accommodations can also be really onerous and not always helpful for a person with disabilities. Like they're designed to be helpful, but they actually are not helpful. I don't think it's helpful to start a job without disclosing neurodiversity because it's real. And like, am I supposed to hide it? Am I supposed to pretend that I don't have it? Am I supposed to wait until my work gets too hard for me to manage? Which is kind of what happened at my last job, right? Like my work got to a point where it was too much without having the proper supports in place that I needed. And when I asked for them, well, what do you know? Like 3 weeks later, I wasn't working there anymore. And I don't think that's a mistake. Right. And like, I didn't put that all together until like a year after I've been let go of that position. I mean, and like that. So to talk about discrimination, like that's a whole other can of worms, the places and the ways that I've encountered barriers and biases that people have, right? And I don't encounter them as much out on my own as a self-employed person, right? Like, and I don't have to advocate for myself to anybody. I can do for myself and give myself what I need to accommodate my work. And it's not a thing. It's just how I work. And that's, you know, like it's so much simpler. It's not a fight. It's not something I have to negotiate with somebody about. And like that really rankles me, probably the ADHD too. Like we don't like boundaries and like we push against things sometimes. Like a little, what is the word I'm looking for? that could sound good. I don't know. For better or worse, we like to push boundaries, right? And I'm a round peg. I don't belong in a square hole. Like most of the holes are square, and I'm round, and it's uncomfortable. It doesn't fit. It hurts. It feels wrong, right? And like getting a diagnosis was just sort of like lifting the veil and helping me understand how much of my experience was really framed by a world that is not built for a person like me.
I feel like that's really real for women, for people of color, like you said, for many marginalized communities that come into these workspaces. And, you know, I remember my time at many jobs. Those first 90 days, you're like, oh, fuck, I can't say anything because one, I need this job to pay my bills. And two, like, I don't want to be the problem child person because that's always what gets put on you. Oh God, they just got here and they're asking for this, this, and this. And so
Totally.
I do think it happens so often to people where they are just too scared to even say anything about what they need. And I think there has been this kind of historical sense in a lot of jobs, like you should just be so grateful you have employment. And it's like, but that's not really, you know, I feel like on the employee side of things, like nothing would get done without us. So why do you think that the treatment of people this way is so is possible that way? And I'm hoping, I mean, obviously we all three of us know we are never going back back inside, but you know, we can continue to kind of share our stories and be like, it doesn't need to be that way. And I'm hoping as we get, I'll just be completely honest, like the aging and the generational change in workplaces. I think a lot of the younger folks that are coming in, you know, people give so much shade to Gen Z, but I'm like, they're finally being like, hey, I watched what happened to like my parents and my grandparents.
Learn from that.
Yeah, like we don't want to deal with that, you know, and so
Quiet
I'm
quit all
hopeful.
day, kiddies. Do it.
Yes.
Same. Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
work over my lunch? What? You don't pay me to work during my lunchtime. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
Bye. I know I feel like it comes so naturally to the younger generations, whereas maybe like Ashlan, our generation, maybe even a little older, it just feels like it's been a fight. And we're just now realizing, oh, why did I do that for so long?
It's very
And
true.
we
Oh,
are creating a new
live and you
norm,
learn, right?
right? Like, and we're saying like there's not just one way to do things. That's a lie of white supremacy culture. That's like there's a right way and there's a wrong way. There's lots of different ways when it comes to communicating to people, when it comes to learning. Like we know that there's never just one way to do something. There are multitude of ways, and there's nothing wrong with like doing things multiple ways so that you catch all the people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. It just makes everything better too when everybody gets what they need and then they can be more creative and find new ways of doing things, easier ways of doing things,
Yeah.
include more people. It just makes more sense.
I mean, that's the
Well, I've got
underpinning
one
of.
more.
Oh, I was going to
Oh, go
say
ahead.
that's the underpinning of all the equity work we want, right? Is like the right resources for the right people at the right time to make everything possible that is possible for people working in the workplace too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so one more hot seat question for you. What's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur for you?
Oh, the hardest part. I mean, sometimes the hardest part is not having somebody around to tell me what to do. You know, I mean, like I could pay a coach and right, like there are support people you can get, but sometimes like I just wish somebody would like make a decision or just do this thing for me that like I mean, I'm learning how to like let go of things and outsource whatever I can and really believe that like if it's not my skill set, I don't need to waste my time trying. Like I'll let somebody else do that. Um, but yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things is there's just like there's nobody else, and sometimes you just have to be the last stop, and you have to make all the calls and all the decisions. And thank God we have right like a community of other people who we are not truly alone, right? Like I have my own company and it's a company of one, but really like Affinity Projects is the work that happens with so many through so many collaborations and partnerships, right? So like not really working alone. I could never do what I do alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It's so true.
Yeah. I have a pro tip that a friend of mine shared. When you think that you have way too many things, is either use a random number generator or use dice to help you choose. So like number things. Like
I
she used
love
to do
that.
the 20-sided dice and she's like be like number it 1 through 20. Whatever the dice rolls, that's what you have to work on. And I oftentimes do that as I'll put things in a spreadsheet and I'll be like, I am so stuck on there's like too much to do. So
When it's like
and
hard to
hopefully,
prioritize.
yeah, where it's like everything literally needs to get done.
Right, right, right.
So
Like
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's genius. I love that. I'm gonna start doing that as well.
Yeah, for like the decision fatigue that sets in for those of us who are neurodiverse and just like all the things I can't prioritize.
Yeah.
All of a
Yes.
sudden,
I
all my
love
higher
my
gone.
yeah. I love my husband so much, but he'll like occasionally be like, "What are you working on today?" And I'll be like, I don't know. I haven't even looked at it." Like there's just it could be a lot of different things. I don't know where my brain's going to take me today. So,
Actually, and I feel like your relationship with your husband and my relationship with my husband are similar in that we're both business owners and they both have other jobs. And so, like, Justin, completely different mindset, completely different, like, priority list, workload, completely different stress levels. And when he comes in to ask me about something, I'm the same way. I'm like, sir, I don't even know like where to start
yeah.
or how to even explain this to you. There's just a lot. He's like, I feel like you've been really busy lately. Yes, I have. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Or the,
And
the
he's so
favorite is
supportive, so
yeah,
wonderful. But
same, same. That or my other favorite is, are you working on emails again? And I was like, oh, honey, this is the life of, yes, email
Yes.
is a primary form of communication. So,
For people who do work that is not like white collar at a computer kind of work, it's hard to look at a person sitting in front of a laptop or a desktop just like tacking away. Like, really, that's work? You're actually doing something? It just looks like you're just like, like, yeah, no, there's hard work.
there's a lot behind it. Yeah. That's why
There's
I
a
love
lot,
that
yeah.
we send voice notes, Natalia, because sometimes that's just like so much easier to just say the things instead of sitting there and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been doing those a lot more as well. It's so much easier.
Yeah.
So much easier. Oh, I love that.
But yeah. So we've come to the end of our questions. Is there anything that we didn't ask today, Natalia, that you want to make sure is shared with the world when this goes on air?
I think because I have been having such a positive experience with self-employment, I now want to encourage other people who are skilled and talented and are not having a positive work experience working for other people to think about going off and doing your own thing by yourself. Because sometimes working for other people is just holding you back. And sometimes working for yourself is the only way to have the life you want and to do work that you love doing.
I love that so much. Yes,
That is
absolutely.
such,
That's kind of the whole point
Yeah.
of what we're doing.
Yeah. So like everybody should do it. Maybe everybody's life will be better. It's not for everyone. I know that. Like I know not everybody yearns to be self-employed. But if you have an inclination towards it, if you think that you might be interested, and there are so many resources, right? Like there are so many communities and information that's out there for the taking. I think in some ways it's gotten easier to be an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that.
yay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to plug before we?
When does this go live?
In a couple weeks, actually.
Okay, great. Yes.
So yeah.
So I'll plug two things. One is my website, which is affinityprojects.net. And the other would be my event Gather, which is happening for the second quarter on May 9th, which is a Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30. If you live and work in the Portland area and do anything within or around the nonprofit sector and mission-oriented work, this is a place for you to come and meet other folks who are doing great work and looking to build community.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.